Hello, in this video I'll be showing you how to make herb roasted chicken. I start preparing this recipe by large chopping one medium-sized yellow onion. I prepare the vegetables for this first because I'm going to use the same cutting board to prepare the chicken, so I want to make sure I don't have any raw meat contamination on any of the other pieces of food. After I have the onion sliced, I also set out some carrots. I'm using baby carrots from the store, but if you have a whole carrot, you could just slice that up to the size that you want as well. I also minced some fresh garlic. To make the butter rub for the chicken, I combine 1 stick of unsalted softened butter, 1 teaspoon of rosemary, half a teaspoon of thyme, 1 teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of pepper, a 1/4 teaspoon of sage, a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and 5 cloves of minced garlic. Then I add in the lemon zest from 1 lemon. I prefer to use fresh lemon zest, but if you don't have a fresh lemon and only had dried zest, you can use 1 tablespoon. Now I mix all of the ingredients together. I mix these together until there's no clumps. Now it's time to start preparing the raw chicken. I place the chicken down on the cutting board and start inspecting it to see what I need to do to finish cleaning it. For this chicken, I removed some of the extra fat that was sticking to the outer skin, and then I also removed the kidneys that were inside of the chicken. After you've bought whole chicken from the store multiple different times, you'll find that each chicken is in a different state for cleanliness. Normally there's not too much that's left inside the chickens because the butcher shops will sell chicken hearts or other organs separate. However, you do have to inspect this each time. Then I took the top few vertebrae of the neck off of the chicken so that you could see completely through the chicken. Then I removed any remaining feathers, rinsed the chicken, and patted it dry. It's important to pat the chicken dry before we put on the butter rub because this is how we'll get that super crispy skin. Now that the chicken is fully dry, I start putting on the butter rub. I'll be cooking the chicken with the breast side facing up, so I start rubbing the butter with that side facing up now. I rub this butter all over the chicken, including the wings and the legs, and also rub some of the butter underneath the skin to make sure that the flavor gets baked into the chicken. Now I flip the chicken over and start rubbing some of the butter onto the back. I don't want this butter to rub off when I lay the chicken back down, so the next time that I lay the chicken down, I'll lay it directly into the roast pan. Now that the chicken is in the roast pan with the breast side facing up, I apply any of the rest of the butter rub that I have left. This is why I prefer to apply the butter rub to the top side first, and then to the back, and then finish to the top again, because this makes sure that I have enough butter rub to put onto both sides. Since the chicken is elevated on a roasting rack inside of the pan, it needs to have oil or something on the back of the skin to keep it from burning. Now it's time to stuff the chicken. I cut 2 whole rounds of lemon from the zested lemon and add those into the chicken. Then I add in 5 whole cloves of garlic. Then I add in 1 fresh sprig of rosemary and 2 fresh sprigs of lemon thyme. You could use English thyme as well, but I really like the flavor that the lemon thyme gives with the other citrusy flavors in the chicken. This is a 3.5 pound chicken, so there's not room to add anything else into this chicken, but if you have a larger chicken, up to 5 pounds, you could add a couple more sprigs of fresh herbs. I've added up to 5 sprigs of fresh herbs based on the size of chicken before. You just have to be careful not to overstuff the chicken, because if it's overstuffed, it won't cook evenly. Now I wet some baking twine with water and tie the chicken's legs together. This step is called trussing, and it's really beneficial to do and make sure that the legs and wings stay close to the chicken's body, which allows everything to cook more evenly. Additionally, it holds any of the stuffing inside of the chicken in place. I cross the legs over each other, wrap the twine around, and tie a square knot at the top, and then take the ends of the twine and tie a square knot at the bottom as well. It's a bit of a messy process because you'll probably knock some butter onto the roast pan, but that's okay because the butter will just then drop to flavor the vegetables underneath. I remove the roasting rack and toss in the carrots, onions, and garlic. I sprinkle this with some avocado oil and salt and pepper. I also add in 2 to 3 fresh sprigs each of rosemary and lemon thyme, and then I toss all of this together. We'll be making a baste for the chicken later, but for the first 30 minutes, I let it cook without any liquid added into the pan, because any liquid in the oven would create steam, which would moisten the skin of the chicken rather than making it crispy. This is why we need to toss the vegetables in oil at this time, because if they're not coated in oil, then they'll burn. Then I push the vegetables to the edges of the pan and add the roasting rack back in. I make sure that none of the vegetables are touching the chicken directly and that the roasting pan is properly seated. Then I put this into the oven to bake at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes. While the chicken's cooking, I prepare the basting juice. I combine 1 cup of unsalted chicken broth or stock, 1 cup of dry white wine, and the juice from the lemon. I prefer to use Sauvignon Blanc as a cooking wine, but regardless of what type of dry wine you choose to use, it's important to note that if it's not worth drinking, it's not worth cooking with. The type of wine and the quality of wine that you use in your baking or cooking has an incredible impact on the taste of the final result. One quick trick to juicing a lemon is to place 1/2 of the lemon into your kitchen tongs and squeeze the lemon with the kitchen tongs. This is a really easy way to get as much juice out as possible. It's also not hard to remove any of the seeds from this because if any seeds fall out, they typically float. I juice the second half of the lemon using the tongs the same way. I give it a quick stir and wait until the chicken has cooked for 30 minutes. After the chicken has cooked for 30 minutes, I take it out of the oven and pour the liquid over the top. I'm only going to use about half the liquid because we'll do this again. I'm taking care to pour really close to the skin so that I don't dislodge much of the herbs that are seasoning the top of the chicken. After I've basted in about half of the liquid, I'll also stir the vegetables around and make sure that they're evenly coated in liquid as well. Then I drop the oven temperature down to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Then I return the chicken to the oven to continue baking. The length of time that it's going to continue baking depends on the size of the chicken. You need your chicken to cook for 15 minutes plus 20 minutes per pound. So for this chicken, I need to cook it for an additional 40 minutes. This means I'm going to put the chicken back in the oven for 20 minutes, and then after 20 minutes, I'm going to baste the remaining liquid over the top of the chicken, stir the vegetables again, and then return it to the oven for an additional 20 minutes of cooking. If you have a larger chicken that needs additional cooking time, make sure that you adjust the time accordingly, but I always cook the chicken for at least 30 minutes before adding in any liquid to make sure it gets nice and crispy. However, if you don't have time to watch the chicken or take it out of the oven while you're cooking it, you can also skip the basting steps. I would recommend adding all of the liquid to the very start and leaving the chicken in for the full time allotted. And just keep in mind that you likely won't have as crispy of skin as if you did do the basting method. The most important part of adding the chicken stock, wine, and lemon juice is just to make sure there's enough moisture in the oven that the chicken stays moist as well. The chicken has finally finished cooking, so now I test it with a thermometer to make sure it's fully cooked. The chicken needs to read at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit, and I like to measure on the inside of one of the legs where the chicken is the thickest. Mine read at 170 degrees Fahrenheit, so now I'm going to loosely cover the chicken with aluminum foil and let it rest. I let it rest for up to 20 minutes. It's very important that the chicken gets this time to rest because the juices that are within the meat will start to recoagulate as it cools down, and this retains the moisture in your chicken. If you were to cut the chicken while it's still very hot, the juices would run out of the meat and you would have dry chicken. Now that the chicken has rested, you can slice it and serve it. I grabbed a drumstick and a piece of the breast, and then I poured some of the juice from the bottom of the pan on top of the chicken. Thanks for watching this video on how to make herb roasted chicken. Let me know how it worked out for you in the comments below, and as always, like and subscribe to see more content.